In the vast, unyielding silence of the cosmos, where stars whispered secrets to no one but themselves, there existed a lone sentinel against the unknown, the Orion Drift Station. Orbiting a forgotten gas giant in the outer reaches of the Andromeda Fringe, it was a relic of humanity's boldest dreams, a fragile bubble of steel and light adrift in the endless night. Kai Harlan, a rugged explorer in his mid-30s with calloused hands from years of tinkering with engines that defied gravity, had called this place home for longer than he cared to admit. His days blurred into nights under the artificial glow of holographic displays, monitoring anomalies that danced like fireflies on the edge of detection. But tonight, as the station's life support hummed its eternal lullaby, something shattered the routine in a way that would rewrite the stars themselves. Kai stirred in his bunk, the thin mattress creaking under his weight like an old friend protesting the disturbance. His eyes fluttered open, heavy with the fog of cryo-sleep residue that never quite left him after those long shifts. The air recyclers whispered softly, circulating the faint metallic tang of recycled oxygen, but there was something else now, a scent that invaded his senses like a forbidden melody. It was sweet, intoxicating, like jasmine blooming in a desert storm, laced with an undercurrent of spice that made his pulse quicken unbidden. He blinked, trying to shake off the haze, and that's when he saw her. She was there, perched on the edge of his bunk as if she owned the very gravity that held her in place. Naked, unashamed, her skin glowed with an ethereal pallor, like moonlight captured and woven into flesh. Long, silken hair the color of fresh snow cascaded over her shoulders, framing a face that could launch 1,000 interstellar wars, high cheekbones, full lips curved in a wicked smile, and eyes that shimmered like twin amethysts under the dim cabin lights. But it was the subtle points of her ears, delicate and elfin, peeking through that cascade of white, that marked her as otherworldly, not human, not from any world Kai knew. Her body was a masterpiece of curves and grace, full breasts rising and falling with a rhythm that synced unnervingly with his own breath, hips that promised secrets the universe had yet to reveal. She leaned forward slightly, her gaze locking onto his with an intensity that pinned him in place, and in a voice like velvet wrapped around a blade, she purred, "Are you just going to stare?" Kai's heart slammed against his ribs like a malfunctioning thruster. He bolted upright, his mind racing through protocols drilled into him since the academy days: unidentified intruder, secure the compartment, alert command. But command was light years away, and this station was his alone. His hand instinctively groped for the emergency panel beside the bunk, fingers brushing the cool metal before he froze. She didn't move, didn't flinch. Instead, that smile deepened, a predatory gleam in her eyes that sent a shiver racing down his spine, not entirely from fear. There was something magnetic about her, a pull that tugged at the primal corners of his soul, whispering temptations he hadn't entertained since leaving Earth. "Who? What the hell are you?" he managed, his voice rougher than intended, betraying the dryness in his throat. He forced himself to look away, focusing on the flickering console across the room where status lights blinked indifferently, but the scent intensified, wrapping around him like invisible tendrils, making his thoughts blur at the edges. It was more than perfume, it was alive, seeping into his pores, stirring a heat low in his belly that he fought to ignore. She tilted her head, those elfin ears twitching ever so slightly, as if catching frequencies beyond his hearing. "I am Zara," she said, her words rolling off her tongue with an exotic lilt, each syllable a caress. "From Zerathia, a realm where stars bend to our will. And you, Kai Harlan, human of the fragile world called Earth, you intrigue me, so bold in your solitude, yet so easily ensnared." She shifted, her bare thigh brushing the edge of the bunk sheet, and Kai swore he felt the air thicken, charged with an electric promise. How did she know his name? The question burned through the fog, sharpening his focus. Zerathia, that name tugged at half-remembered briefings from his mission logs, an ancient empire on the rimward edge, shrouded in myths of psychic manipulators and seductive spies who could topple governments with a glance. Legends whispered in the barracks back on Luna Base, tales of warriors who fell not to lasers but to the allure of alien temptresses. But this was no legend. This was real, flesh and fire. Sitting inches from him, her naked form a challenge to every ounce of his training, Kai's mind whirled. The station's security logs, had they glitched? No alarms, no breach alerts. She must have slipped through the vents or phased through the hull like some ghost from a bad holo flick. He edged back, pressing against the bulkhead, his muscles coiling like springs. "Intruders don't get to play coy," he growled, forcing steel into his voice. State your purpose, or I'll vent you into the void myself." Zara laughed then, a sound like crystal chimes in a hurricane, low and throaty, sending another wave of that intoxicating aroma washing over him. It cloyed now, insistent, making his vision swim with fleeting images, soft skin under his hands, lips parting in surrender. He shook his head violently, cursing under his breath. Pheromones, it had to be. Zerathian tech or biology, weaponized desire. The briefings had mentioned it, a chemical seduction that bypassed willpower, turning protectors into puppets. But Kai Harlan wasn't just any grunt. He jury-rigged reactors on failing colonies, outsmarted AI swarms with nothing but a pocket scanner. He wouldn't fall to a pretty face and a cloud of perfume. Yet, as she leaned closer, her breath warm against his cheek, he felt the battle raging inside. "My purpose," she murmured, her fingers, long, elegant, tipped with nails like polished obsidian, trailing lightly along the bunk's edge, inches from his leg, "to claim what is rightfully Zerathia's. Your station holds data, Harlan, secrets of your human ingenuity that could tip the balance of galaxies. But I see now, perhaps I can claim more." Her eyes darkened, pupils dilating like black holes drawing him in. "Surrender to me, and the stars will sing your name. Resist, and, well, let's see how long a man can stare before he touches." The words hung in the air, a gauntlet thrown. Kai's breath came in shallow bursts, his body betraying him with a surge of adrenaline-fueled want. He could almost taste her, feel the silk of her skin against his rough palms, but beneath the haze, a spark ignited, human stubbornness, that unyielding fire that had carried his species from caves to the stars. He wasn't prey, he was the hunter. With deliberate slowness, he swung his legs over the side of the bunk, standing to tower over her, his 6-foot frame casting a shadow in the low light. Zara didn't recoil, if anything, her smile widened, expectant. "Touch me, then," she challenged, arching her back just enough to accentuate the graceful swell of her form. "Or are humans as weak as the rumors say?" Kai's hand shot out not to her, but to the utility pouch clipped to his belt. Inside, amid the standard kit of tools and ration packs, was a small vial of experimental neutralizer he'd brewed during a long shift, a hobbyist's antidote to exotic toxins. Chem major in his youth, before the stars called, he'd tinkered with molecular bonds for fun. This one was meant for rad scans, but its base could bind volatiles like pheromones, rendering them inert. Risky as hell, but better than losing his mind to some alien vixen. He uncapped it with his teeth, the sharp chemical bite cutting through the sweetness like a knife. "Rumors lie," he said, voice steady now. In one fluid motion, he flicked the contents toward her, a fine mist that shimmered in the air before settling on her skin like dew. Zara's eyes widened, the first crack in her composure. She gasped, a sound that was half surprise, half something deeper, as the pheromones faltered. The fog in Kai's head lifted like morning mist burned away by the sun, clarity rushing back. She clutched at her throat, her perfect poise fracturing as she slid from the bunk to her knees, naked vulnerability laid bare. What have you done?" she whispered, her voice losing its seductive edge, replaced by a raw edge of confusion. Kai knelt beside her, not triumphant yet, but resolute. He grabbed a thermal blanket from the overhead compartment, draping it over her shoulders with surprising gentleness. "Neutralized your little trick," he replied, his tone even, laced with that human mix of grit and curiosity. "Now, Zara of Zerathia, it's time you talked, really talked." As the station's alarms finally blared late but insistent, signaling an incoming fleet from the void, Kai realized this was just the beginning. Zerathia hadn't sent a spy, they'd sent a Temptress to break him, but humanity didn't break. We bent the universe to our will, one stubborn atom at a time, and as Zara looked up at him, her amethyst eyes flickering with a new emotion, perhaps respect, perhaps something more dangerous, Kai felt the weight of destinies colliding. The stars outside the porthole twinkled mockingly, but he smiled inwardly. The game had changed. The klaxons wailed, red emergency lights pulsing like a heartbeat across the cabin walls. Kai hauled Zara to her feet, her body warm and yielding under the blanket, a stark contrast to the warrior grace she'd projected moments ago. She didn't resist, her elfin ears drooping slightly in what might have been defeat or exhaustion. "You humans," she muttered, her voice husky, "your chemistry is unpredictable, like your hearts." He guided her toward the command deck, one arm firm around her waist, not roughly, but with the authority of a man who'd stared down black holes and lived. The corridor stretched ahead, narrow and utilitarian, lined with access panels that hissed faintly as pressure equalized. "Unpredictable is our specialty," Kai shot back, his mind already racing ahead. The sensors were lighting up with signatures, dozens of sleek Zerathian scouts, their hulls probably etched with those swirling runes that defied human scanners. They were coming for their agent and whatever data she'd come to steal. But Kai had a station full of surprises and a captive who might just be the key to turning the tide. As they entered the command center, the main view screen flared to life, projecting a holographic starfield dotted with incoming blips. Zara's people. Kai strapped her into a jump seat, securing the restraints with a click that echoed her earlier vulnerability. She met his gaze, that wicked smile attempting a comeback, though dimmed. "You think a mist will hold me?" Zerathia bows to no primitive brew. "Primitive?" Kai chuckled, a low rumble that eased the tension coiling in his chest. He slid into the pilot's chair, fingers flying over the controls, initiating lockdown protocols. Bulkheads sealed with a resonant thud, energy shields humming to full power. "We've tamed fusion with duct tape and prayers. Your pheromones are just another puzzle." He glanced at her, noting the way the blanket clung to her curves, her white hair tousled like a fallen angel's. There was beauty in her defeat, a raw allure that stirred something protective in him, but now wasn't the time for distractions. The first scout ship breached the outer perimeter, its weapons arrays glowing with plasma charge. Kai's hands danced across the console, diverting power from non-essentials to the point defense grid. "Talk to me, Zara," he urged, his voice calm amid the rising chaos. "Why me? Why this station?" She hesitated, her amethyst eyes flicking to the screen where her fleet advanced like shadows in the night. "Because you're alone," she admitted finally, a hint of reluctance in her tone. "Zerathia seeks alliances, but humans, you hoard your innovations. Railguns that pierce shields, drives that warp space without tears. We need that edge against the void storms brewing in the core." "Alliances?" Kai's brow furrowed as he fired the first countermeasure, a barrage of micro-mines that blossomed into a defensive web. The lead scout veered sharply, but not before a mine clipped its wing, sending sparks cascading across the void. "So you send a seductress to steal it? Classy." Zara's laugh was genuine this time, soft and surprising. "Seductress, it's our way. Desire binds stronger than chains." She shifted in her seat, the blanket slipping just enough to reveal the elegant line of her collarbone, dotted with faint, luminescent tattoos that pulsed like distant stars. "But you resisted. No Zerathian has ever." Her words cut off as the station shuddered, the second scout unleashing a volley of energy lances that rattled the hull. Alarms screamed, damage reports scrolling in red across the secondary display. Kai gritted his teeth, rerouting auxiliary power to the maneuvering thrusters. The Orion Drift wasn't built for war, it was a research outpost, lightly armed for pirates at best, but Kai had modified it in his spare time, adding human flair, improvised EMP bursts and a prototype disruptor cannon cobbled from salvage. He triggered the EMP, a silent wave that rippled outward, shorting the scouts' nav systems. Two ships spiraled wildly, colliding in a brilliant explosion that lit the cabin like fireworks. Zara gasped, her eyes wide, not with fear, but awe. "How? Our shields are impervious to such barbarity." "Barbarity wins wars," Kai replied, wiping sweat from his brow. The scent of her lingered, faint now, but enough to remind him of the temptation he'd dodged. As the fleet regrouped, larger vessels emerging from hyperspace folds, he turned to her. "Help me, Zara, call them off, or we both end up stardust." She studied him, those elfin ears perking up as if listening to an inner voice. The tattoos on her skin glowed brighter, syncing with the incoming transmissions pinging the comms. "And why should I? You're my captor now." "Because," Kai said, meeting her gaze with that unyielding human fire, "I'm not just going to stare, I'm going to fight for both of us." The words hung between them, charged with unspoken promise. Zara's expression softened, a flicker of something human crossing her alien features. As the Zerathian flagship loomed on the screen, its weapons priming for a devastating strike, she reached for the comm panel, her voice steady. "This is Zara of the Seventh Veil. Stand down, the human, he is worthy." Worthy, the word echoed in Kai's mind as he braced for the response. The stars held their breath, and in that moment, he knew this was no mere intrusion. This was the spark of something cosmic, a romance forged in the fires of defiance. But the fleet didn't yield easily, and as lasers streaked across the void, Kai realized the real battle was just igniting. The flagship's response crackled through the speakers, a chorus of Zerathian voices laced with disbelief. "Agent Zara, report, the data core is within reach. Why halt?" Zara's fingers trembled slightly on the controls, but her voice rang clear, authoritative. The core is compromised. Harlan has anticipated our moves. Recall all units now. There was a pause, heavy with static, and then compliance. The scouts peeled away, vanishing into warp signatures that left trails of ionized gas. The flagship lingered a moment longer, its silhouette a majestic dagger against the gas giant's swirling storms. Before following suit, Kai exhaled, slumping back in his chair as the all-clear hummed through the station. Silence returned, broken only by the soft whir of cooling systems. He turned to Zara, unstrapping her with careful hands. "That was too close. You just saved our skins." She rose, the blanket pooling at her feet, revealing once more the elegant lines of her form, though now, in the aftermath, it felt less like a weapon and more like a revelation. Her white hair framed her face in disarray, those amethyst eyes searching his. "I saved yours, human. Zerathia does not forget debts." He stood, closing the distance between them, the air still thick with the remnants of her scent and the ozone of near miss. "Kai, call me Kai." His hand brushed her arm, not in conquest, but connection, a touch that sent sparks through both. In her eyes, he saw not just the spy, but the woman beneath, caught in the same whirlwind. As the station stabilized, drifting serenely once more, Kai wondered what lay ahead. Zerathia wouldn't let this go easily. But with Zara at his side, the universe suddenly seemed a little less lonely, a little more alive with possibility. Little did he know, the true temptations and trials were only beginning to unfold. Zara's declaration lingered in the air like the afterglow of a supernova, her voice still echoing softly against the hum of the station's consoles. Kai felt the warmth of her skin under his fingertips, a fleeting contact that ignited a spark he hadn't anticipated, not just survival's rush, but something deeper, more insistent, threading through his veins like the first taste of forbidden wine. The view screen dimmed as the Zerathian ships faded into the distance, leaving only the swirling clouds of the gas giant to fill the void outside. Inside, though, the tension coiled tighter, an invisible current pulling them closer in the confined space of the command deck. Zara stepped forward, her bare feet silent on the grated floor, the blanket discarded like a shed skin, her body a luminous silhouette against the starlit backdrop. Those elfin ears, so delicately pointed, caught the faint glow from the panels, and her white hair seemed to float as if defying the station's artificial gravity. "You intrigue me, Kai," she whispered, her amethyst eyes locking onto his with a hunger that mirrored the one he was desperately trying to suppress. The neutralizer had dulled her pheromones, but it hadn't erased the raw magnetism of her presence, the way her full breasts rose with each breath, the subtle sway of her hips as she closed the gap between them, her skin so pale it almost blended with the holographic stars flickering behind her. No Zerathian male has ever resisted the veil's embrace. Yet here you stand, untouched, unbroken. What fire burns in a human heart to defy such bliss? Kai swallowed hard, his back pressed against the console's edge, the cool metal a stark contrast to the heat building within him. He could feel the pulse of the station vibrating through his boots, a reminder that they were still adrift, vulnerable, but for the moment, safe. His hand lingered on her arm, tracing the faint luminescent tattoos that snaked across her shoulder like living constellations, each one pulsing faintly in rhythm with her quickening breath. "Fire," he echoed, his voice low, gravelly, laced with that edge of challenge that humans wielded like a weapon. "We've stared into the heart of suns and come out laughing. Your veil, it's just smoke and mirrors to me now." But even as he spoke, doubt flickered. Her nearness was a siren's call, stirring memories of lonely nights on distant outposts, where the only company was the cold kiss of recycled air. She reached up, her fingers slender, cool, yet sending jolts of electricity through his skin, brushing his jawline, tilting his face down to meet hers. Her lips parted slightly, revealing the barest hint of sharper canines, a reminder of her predatory heritage, but in this moment, it only heightened the allure, making her seem like a goddess descended from some mythic realm. "Smoke and mirrors," she murmured, her breath warm against his neck, carrying the faint, lingering spice of her essence. "Then let me show you the reality, Kai. Let me unravel you, thread by thread, until you beg for the stars to witness our union." Her body pressed closer, the soft press of her curves against his flight suit igniting a firestorm low in his gut. He could feel the heat radiating from her nipples hardening against the fabric of his uniform, a silent invitation that made his resolve waver like a ship caught in solar wind. The command deck felt smaller now, the air thicker, charged with unspoken desires that hung between them like plasma arcs waiting to discharge. Kai's hands, of their own accord, slid to her waist, gripping the smooth expanse of her hips, feeling the subtle strength beneath her silken skin, the lithe power of a Zerathian warrior, trained in dances that could disarm foes or lovers alike. "This isn't a game, Zara," he warned, though his voice betrayed him, husky with want. "Your people could come back, the data core. Whatever you're after, it's not worth." His words faltered as she rose on her toes, her lips brushing his ear, her white hair cascading over his shoulder like a veil of snow. "Worth what?" she teased, her tongue flicking out to trace the lobe of his ear, a featherlight touch that sent shivers cascading down his spine. "The risk? The surrender? Oh, Kai, humans are such delicious contradictions, fierce protectors, yet crumbling under the weight of your own curiosities." Her hands roamed now, bold and unapologetic, slipping under the hem of his suit, her nails grazing the taut muscles of his abdomen. He tensed, a low groan escaping his lips unbidden, as her touch awakened nerves he'd long ignored in the isolation of space. The station's lights dimmed automatically for low-power mode, casting elongated shadows that danced across her form, highlighting the elegant arch of her back, the inviting valley between her thighs, suspense built in the silence, broken only by their mingled breaths, each inhale drawing her scent deeper into his lungs, a heady mix that the neutralizer couldn't fully erase. Kai's mind raced, a whirlwind of protocol and primal urge. He was no stranger to the star's temptations, fleeting encounters on colony ports, where boredom bred recklessness, but this was different. Zara was a storm incarnate, her elfin features softening into an expression of genuine intrigue, her amethyst eyes darkening with a passion that mirrored his own rising tide. "Tell me to stop," she challenged, her voice a sultry whisper, as her fingers ventured lower, teasing the zipper of his suit with deliberate slowness. "Command me, as you did your machines, or admit that you crave this as much as I do, the forbidden dance between worlds." He didn't command her. Instead, his hands tightened on her hips, pulling her flush against him, feeling the exquisite friction of her naked body against the rough weave of his uniform. The kiss that followed was inevitable, a collision of worlds, his lips claiming hers with a hunger born of defiance, her mouth yielding yet demanding, tongues entwining in a battle that neither wanted to win. She tasted of exotic spices and starlight, her moan vibrating through him like a thrumming engine, urging him onward. Kai's world narrowed to the sensation of her, the way her breasts pressed against his chest, nipples like points of fire, the slide of her thigh between his legs, pressing insistently, erotically, against the growing evidence of his arousal. They stumbled back together, a tangle of limbs and longing, until the console dug into his back. Zara broke the kiss with a gasp, her cheeks flushed with an otherworldly glow, her white hair disheveled and wild. "Yes," she breathed, her hands working the seals of his suit with expert precision, peeling away layers like unwrapping a long-awaited gift. Cool air kissed his exposed skin, but her touch was fire, trailing down his chest over the ridges of his abs, until she palmed him through the remaining fabric, eliciting a sharp intake of breath from him. "Feel that, Kai? That's the pulse of the universe, syncing with yours. No more staring, only devouring." Suspense hung heavy as he lifted her onto the console, her legs wrapping around his waist with a grace that belied her warrior's strength, drawing him impossibly closer. The station's hum faded to a distant drone, replaced by the symphony of their shared urgency, soft sighs, the rustle of fabric giving way, the wet heat of her anticipation pressing against him. Kai's fingers explored her, tracing the luminescent tattoos that seemed to brighten under his touch, mapping the contours of her alien form, the sensitive tips of her elfin ears that made her arch and whimper when he nipped them, the silken folds between her thighs, slick and welcoming, pulsing with a rhythm that matched his own racing heart. "Zara," he growled, his voice thick with need, "you're no spy, you're a revelation." She laughed, a sound laced with erotic promise, her nails raking lightly down his back as she guided him. "And you, human, are the chaos I never knew I craved." Their bodies joined in a slow, deliberate thrust, a union that transcended species, a gasp of surprise from her at his girth, a groan from him at her tightness, her inner walls clenching like velvet vices designed for ecstasy. They moved together, the console creaking under their weight, the viewscreen forgotten as stars blurred into irrelevance. Each stroke built the tension, suspense weaving through the pleasure. Would the fleet return? Could this moment shatter everything? But in the haze of sensation, doubts dissolved, leaving only the erotic rhythm of skin on skin, her moans escalating into cries that echoed off the bulkheads. Kai lost himself in her, the way she bucked against him, her white hair whipping like a banner of surrender, her amethyst eyes half-lidded in bliss, her hands clutched at his shoulders, pulling him deeper, her body a conduit for waves of pleasure that crashed over them both. More, she demanded, her voice breaking on a sob of delight, and he obliged, angling his hips to hit that spot that made her tremble, her elfin ears flushing with heat. The air grew thick with the musk of their joining, sweat-slicked skins sliding in perfect harmony, building toward a precipice that loomed ever closer. Yet, even in the throes, a shadow of suspense lingered, the faint ping of an incoming transmission on the comms, ignored in the heat of the moment, a harbinger of complications yet to come. Zara's climax hit first, her body convulsing around him, a keening wail escaping her lips as stars exploded behind her eyes, her tattoos flaring like a nebula in full bloom. Kai followed seconds later, burying himself to the hilt with a guttural roar, spilling into her with a release that shook him to his core, leaving them both panting, entwined, in the afterglow, as their breaths slowed. Zara nestled against his chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his skin, a soft smile playing on her lips. "You resisted the veil," she murmured, her voice sated, vulnerable, only to embrace it willingly. "What sorcery is this, Kai Harlan?" He chuckled, holding her close, the warmth of her body a balm against the cold void outside. "No sorcery, just human nature, stubborn, passionate, and always hungry for more." But as the transmission pinged again, insistent now, Kai's instincts sharpened. The erotic interlude had been a reprieve, but the stars never slept, and neither, it seemed, did Zerathia's ambitions. Zara lifted her head, her eyes narrowing at the console, a flicker of concern crossing her features. "That's not one of ours," she said softly, the suspense returning like a shadow creeping back into the light. Kai disentangled himself gently, pulling up his suit with reluctant efficiency, his body still humming from their union. He activated the comms, the screen flickering to life with an encrypted signal from Earth Command, urgent, coded in the old frequencies. "Harlan here," he said, his voice steady despite the lingering flush on his skin. Zara watched him, her naked form perched on the console like a queen on her throne, curiosity and a hint of possessiveness in her gaze. The message decoded in bursts, anomaly detected. Zerathian incursion confirmed. Hold position. Reinforcements en route, ETA 48 hours. But beneath the official words, a personal note from his old CO, "Whatever you've stirred up out there, Kai, don't let it consume you. Humans bend, but we don't break." Zara slid down beside him, her hand slipping into his, an intimate gesture that grounded him amid the rising tension. "They know," she whispered, her elfin ear brushing his shoulder. "My people, they'll see this as betrayal or opportunity." Her touch lingered, erotic echoes still dancing in her eyes, but now laced with the thrill of uncertainty. What would come next? Allies turning to foes, or lovers forging a new path across the stars? Kai squeezed her hand, his mind already plotting defenses, his body remembering her curves. The station drifted on, but their story was far from over, suspended in a delicate balance of desire and danger. The hours that followed blurred into a tense vigil, the erotic afterglow fading into watchful anticipation. Kai busied himself reinforcing the station's shields, rerouting power through jury-rigged conduits that sparked and hummed under his expert hands. Zara, ever the enigma, assisted with a grace that belied her nudity, she moved about the deck like a specter of allure, her white hair swaying, her tattoos casting ethereal lights on the walls. Occasionally, her fingers would brush his as they worked side by side, a deliberate tease that reignited the fire between them, keeping the air charged with unspoken promises. "You fight like a poet," she observed once, watching him weld a panel with focused intensity, her voice husky, all fire and precision. "It stirs me, Kai." He glanced up, sweat beading on his brow, meeting her gaze with a smirk that hid the storm within. "And you watch like a predator," he countered, the words laced with erotic undertone. "Makes a man wonder what else those eyes see." She laughed, low and inviting, stepping closer to press a kiss to his temple, her body molding against his back for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. But the comms crackled intermittently, probes from Zerathia, testing the perimeter, each ping a reminder that their stolen moment was a fragile bubble in the vastness. As night cycle dimmed the lights further, they retreated to his quarters, the same bunk where it all began. Suspense wove through the air as they lay together, her head on his chest, listening to the rhythm of his heart, a sound alien to her people, who synced to crystalline frequencies. "Tell me of your world," she urged, her fingers tracing circles on his skin, dipping lower with each loop, building a slow burn that made his breath hitch. Kai obliged, weaving tales of Earth's oceans and mountains, his voice a soothing rumble that masked the growing unease. Her responses were touches, soft caresses that turned insistent, her leg draping over his, guiding his hand to the heat between her thighs once more. Their second joining was slower, more deliberate, dance of suspense where every pause heightened the anticipation. She straddled him, her curves illuminated by the porthole's starlight, guiding him inside with a sigh that bordered on reverence. They moved in sync, her hips rolling like waves in a cosmic sea, her moans a symphony that drowned out the distant alarms. Kai's hands roamed her back, gripping her ass as she rode him, the slick slide of their bodies a erotic ritual that bound them tighter. "Zara," he gasped, thrusting up to meet her, feeling her clench around him in waves of pleasure. She came undone above him, her body arching like a bowstring released, pulling him over the edge with her in a shared explosion that left them trembling, entwined, but even as ecstasy faded, the suspense deepened, a soft alert from the sensors, indicating a cloaked vessel approaching. Zara's eyes snapped open, her elfin ears twitching. "It's them," she said, the words a velvet warning. "Not the fleet, a hunter, sent to retrieve me." Kai pulled her close, his mind sharpening amid the languor. The erotic interlude had forged something unbreakable, but now, the stars demanded payment. As they rose, dressing for battle, him in his suit, her in a borrowed jumpsuit that hugged her form like a second skin, the tension mounted. A promise of trials that would test not just their bodies, but the budding flame between their souls. The borrowed jumpsuit clung to Zara's curves like a second skin. The utilitarian fabric of Kai's spare gear, stretching taut over her lithe form, accentuating the elegant swell of her hips and the subtle flare of her breasts in a way that was both practical and distractingly alluring. She adjusted the collar with a quick tug, her elfin ears twitching as the soft alert escalated into a piercing whine from the sensors, cutting through the lingering haze of their intimacy like a laser through fog. Kai zipped his flight suit the rest of the way, his fingers steady despite the adrenaline surging back into his system, the taste of her still fresh on his lips, a salty sweet reminder that this fragile alliance could shatter with the next transmission. "A hunter," Zara repeated, her amethyst eyes narrowing as she strode to the auxiliary console, her white hair swaying like a banner in the dim emergency lighting. The ship was closing fast, its signature a ghostly whisper on the scanners, cloaked in some Zerathian stealth weave that made it flicker in and out of detection like a half-remembered dream. Kai joined her, his shoulder brushing hers in the narrow space, the contact sending a residual spark through him even now. The main view screen bloomed with enhanced data overlays, thermal blooms, warp residue trails, painting a picture of pursuit that twisted his gut. "How long until it's in range?" he demanded, his voice dropping to that low, urgent timbre honed from too many solo patrols where hesitation meant oblivion. "Minutes," Zara replied, her fingers dancing over the controls with a familiarity that spoke of her spy's training, pulling up schematics of the incoming vessel. It was a sleek interceptor, dagger-shaped with nacelles that hummed with exotic energy signatures, designed not for fleet battles but for silent extractions or assassinations. The Shadow Blade, piloted by Vexa, my sister in the Veil, she's relentless. Kai, if she senses betrayal, she'll carve this station to atoms without a second thought. The word sister hung heavy, laced with a dramatic undercurrent of shared history, of bonds forged in the crystalline halls of Zerathia where loyalty was etched into the soul like those glowing tattoos on her skin. The station shuddered subtly, a precursor vibration rippling through the deck plates as the hunter's probe fields brushed the outer shields. Kai's mind raced, piecing together strategies from fragments of intel he'd gleaned from old mission briefs. Zerathian hunters were psychic amplifiers, their ships laced with neural disruptors that could induce hallucinations, turning prey against itself before the kill shot. But he had the home field advantage, or what passed for it in this tin can orbiting a monster world. "We can't outrun it," he said, his tone brooking no argument, eyes flicking to Zara's profile, the way her jaw set in determination, mirroring his own resolve. "But we can outthink it. Your people rely on the veil, mind games, seduction, time to show them human grit." Zara turned to him, her expression a whirlwind of conflict, curiosity flickering in those alien depths, mingled with a thrilling edge of fear that made her seem more alive, more vulnerable than the Temptress who'd first perched on his bunk. "Grit, you speak of it like a weapon, but Vexa, she knows me inside out. Our minds are linked through the veil, she could feel my distraction." Her hand instinctively touched her abdomen, where the warmth of their earlier union still lingered, a surprising intimacy that colored her cheeks with a faint, luminescent blush. The admission hung between them, dramatic in its rawness, pulling the air taut as the hunter's signal sharpened on the screen. Alarms blared anew, red strobes painting their faces in bloody hues, and Kai slapped the override, silencing the din to a low pulse. "Then we use that," he countered, grabbing her wrist gently but firmly, drawing her close enough to feel the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. "Make her doubt, play the game on our terms." His free hand activated the external arrays, flooding the void with false echoes, ghost signatures of decoy drones he'd prepped during lonely shifts, mimicking escape pods scattering like startled fish. The hunter veered, its cloak flickering as it chased phantoms, buying them precious seconds. But Vexa was no fool. The shadow blade corrected mid-turn, locking onto the real prize with a targeting ping that vibrated the hull like a predator's growl. Thrill coursed through Kai's veins, a heady mix of terror and exhilaration that sharpened every sense, the metallic tang of ozone from overtaxed circuits, the faint floral residue of Zara's skin mingling with his sweat. He pulled her into the tactical nook, a cramped alcove lined with manual overrides and emergency caches, their bodies pressed together in the confined space. "What's her weakness?" he whispered urgently, his breath hot against her ear, stirring a strand of her white hair. Zara hesitated, her elfin ears flattening slightly in what might have been shame or strategy, then whispered back, "Pride, and echoes of the veil disrupt her link to me, and she falters." The station rocked violently then, the first strike glancing off the shields in a cascade of sparks that lit the porthole like fireworks gone wrong. Zara gasped, clutching Kai's arm, her nails digging in with surprising force, drawing a thin line of blood that he ignored. "Now," he barked, slamming the disruptor sequence, a human hack job of modulated frequencies designed to scramble comms, but amped with a twist from his chem kit, a burst of ionized particles laced with that same neutralizer mist, vented into space like a chemical smokescreen. The shadow blade fired again, this time a precision beam that sheared through a solar array, sending debris tumbling into the gas giant's atmosphere below, where it burned up in dramatic streaks of fire. Curiosity burned in Zara's eyes as she watched the console, the surprising ingenuity of his countermeasure unfolding before her. "You're improvising," she marveled, her voice laced with awe, even as the deck tilted under another hit. The hunter was closing, its form materializing fully now, a sleek obsidian blade etched with glowing runes that pulsed like veins. Vexa's silhouette visible in the cockpit, her own white hair a mirror to Zara's, her face a mask of furious determination. No Zerathian ship fights like this. It's chaos, beautiful, terrifying chaos. Kai grinned fiercely, adrenaline fueling a dramatic surge of confidence, his hands flying across the controls to initiate the station's emergency maneuver. A desperate slingshot burned toward the gas giant's gravitational well, using the planet's storms to mask their trail. The engines roared to life, G-forces pinning them against the bulkhead, Zara's body molding against his in a thrilling press that blurred the line between battle and embrace. "Chaos is our middle name," he quipped, though his voice strained with effort, sweat beading on his forehead. The view screen filled with the swirling maelstrom of the giant's upper atmosphere, turbulent bands of ammonia clouds laced with lightning that could fry shields in seconds. The shadow blade pursued, matching their arc with eerie precision, but the disruptor field was taking hold. Vexa's ship stuttered, its cloak failing in bursts, revealing vulnerabilities in the nacelles. Then came the climax, sudden and shocking, a boarding beam lancing out from the hunter, not to destroy, but to latch on, magnetic grapples slamming into the station's hull with a bone-jarring clang that echoed through every corridor. Zara's eyes widened in horror, a surprising vulnerability cracking her composure. "She's coming for me," she breathed, the link through the veil flaring in her mind like a psychic scream. Vexa's rage flooding through, "Betrayer, the human taints you." Alarms wailed as pressure seals strained, the docking tube extending from the shadow blade like a venomous stinger. Kai didn't hesitate. He shoved Zara behind him, grabbing a pulse rifle from the weapons locker, standard issue, but modded with overcharged cells that hummed with unstable energy. "Stay back," he ordered, his stance wide, every muscle coiled like a spring. The airlock cycled with a hiss, and there she was, Vexa, bursting through in a whirlwind of motion, her own form a mirror of Zara's allure but twisted with fury, white hair braided into warrior spikes. The same pale skin marked by more aggressive tattoos that writhed like serpents. Elfin ears adorned with jeweled piercings that glinted under the strobes. She wore form-fitting armor that hugged her curves like liquid shadow, a bladed gauntlet on one hand gleaming with lethal intent. "You dare touch what's sacred?" Vexa snarled, her voice a venomous echo of Zara's seductive tones, amethyst eyes blazing as she lunged, the gauntlet whistling through the air toward Kai's throat. He dodged, the blade embedding in the console with a shower of sparks, and fired the rifle in a thrilling burst, blue plasma bolts that scorched her armor but didn't penetrate. She whirled, faster than human eyes could track, her free hand extending in a psychic lash that slammed into Kai's mind like a thunderclap, visions of writhing shadows and lost loves assaulting his senses, trying to break him from within. Pain exploded behind his eyes, dramatic waves that buckled his knees, but Kai roared through it. Human will a fortress against the assault. Not today, he countered with a brutal tackle, slamming Vexa against the bulkhead, the impact jarring her enough to sever the psychic link momentarily. Zara surged forward then, surprising them both, her hands glowing with veil energy, not to aid her sister, but to amplify Kai's disruptor field, channeling it through her tattoos in a brilliant flare that engulfed Vexa. The hunter screamed, a sound that was equal parts agony and disbelief, her body convulsing as the neutralizer coursed through her, shattering the mental bond like fragile crystal. Vexa collapsed, her armor smoking, eyes glazing over in defeat, but not before whispering a curse that chilled the air. "The Empress will come, for both of you." Kai restrained her with mag cuffs from the security kit, his chest heaving, the thrill of victory mingling with the dramatic weight of what they'd unleashed. Zara knelt beside her sister, a curious tenderness in her touch, actual tears, glistening in her eyes, a surprising show of emotion from the stoic Zerathian. "Why, Vexa, we could have shared this." "Discovery." The hunter's lips curled in a weak, bitter smile. "Discovery, it's abomination. Humans corrupt the pure." But as the station pulled free from the grapples, engines straining to escape the gravitational pull, Kai felt the climax crest into a new, thrilling uncertainty. They'd won the skirmish, but Vexa's words echoed like a prophecy. The Empress, Zerathia's ruler, a figure of mythic dread in the briefings, wielder of fleets that could eclipse suns. What had they stirred? As Vexa slumped into unconsciousness, Zara looked to Kai, her expression a storm of gratitude, fear, and something deeper, more curious, a spark of love, perhaps, blooming in the ashes of battle. The escape burn propelled them deeper into the gas giant's shadow, lightning storms raging outside like the universe's own fury, mirroring the turmoil within. Kai secured Vexa in the brig, a makeshift cell of force fields and recycled air. Her form slumped against the wall, defeated but unbroken. Returning to the command deck, he found Zara staring out the porthole, her jumpsuit unzipped just enough to reveal the curve of her neck, her white hair a tangled halo. "You saved her," he said softly, the words carrying the weight of their shared adrenaline, his hand resting on her shoulder, feeling the subtle tremor there. "And you saved us," she replied, turning to him with eyes that held a surprising vulnerability, the dramatic event stripping away layers of her spy's facade. The console beeped, an incoming hyperspace window opening for their jump to safety, but before they could engage, a new signal pierced the storm, not Zerathian, but something older, more ominous. A shadow fleet, bearing the sigil of the void storms Zara had mentioned earlier, tendrils of darkness uncoiling from the core worlds. Thrilling surprise gripped him. This wasn't just about Zerathia anymore. The galaxy's underbelly was awakening, drawn by the ripples of their defiance. Zara's hand found his, squeezing with desperate strength. "They're here for the data you protect, the innovations that could seal the storms." Vexa wasn't the hunter, she was the bait. The revelation hit like a solar flare, curious implications unfolding. Had Zerathia played them all along, or was this a greater conspiracy? As the shadow ships closed in, their forms twisting reality itself, Kai initiated the jump, the stars streaking into hyperspace in a blinding rush. But the climax was far from over. Emerging on the other side, they found not safety, but a blockade. Zerathian reinforcements, led by a colossal vessel that dwarfed the station, its hull alive with the Empress's own veil aura. Heart pounding, Kai strapped in, Zara at his side, their bond forged in fire now tested by the stars themselves. "Hold on," he murmured, fingers intertwining with hers, the thrilling uncertainty of what came next electric in the air. The battle for survival, and perhaps for each other, had only just peaked, surprising twists lurking in the void ahead. The hyperspace tunnel spat them out like a cosmic cough, the Orion drift station lurching back into real space with a groan of protesting engines that echoed Kai's own pounding heart. Stars snapped into focus on the view screen, But instead of the welcoming void of a safe jump point, they were staring down the maw of a blockade, a glittering armada of Zerathian cruisers, their hulls shimmering with veil energy fields that warped the light around them like heat haze over a desert. At the center loomed the colossal dreadnought, the Veil's Fury, a behemoth twice the size of any human carrier Kai had ever seen. Its surface alive with swirling tattoos of plasma that mimicked Zara's own skin markings. The Empress's aura pulsed from it, a psychic thrum that even through the hull made Kai's temples ache, as if the very air conspired to bend his will. Zara's grip on his hand tightened to the point of pain, her knuckles white against her pale skin, those amethyst eyes wide with a mix of dread and defiance that heightened the drama unfolding around them. "The Empress," she breathed, the word carrying the weight of ancient prophecies and forbidden taboos, her elfin ears flattening against her skull in instinctive submission. "She's come herself. This isn't retrieval, Kai, it's judgment." The console erupted in a symphony of alerts, targeting locks painting the station in accusatory red, while automated hails boomed through the speakers in that lilting Zerathian tongue, demanding surrender with a tone that brooked no argument. Kai's mind reeled, the thrilling escape from the Shadow Fleet now twisted into this nightmare blockade, their stolen moments of passion feeling like a cruel joke from the universe. "Hold on. Yeah, that was optimistic," Kai muttered, his voice laced with a wry humor that masked the knot of fear in his gut, fingers flying across the controls to evade the first tractor beam lancing out like a glowing lasso. The station bucked, artificial gravity flickering for a heart-stopping second, sending loose tools skittering across the deck like startled insects. Zara stumbled against him, her unzipped jumpsuit gaping just enough to offer an awkward glimpse of cleavage that, in any other moment, might have sparked a grin, but now it only added to the tension, her body heat pressing into his side as they braced for impact. "Computer, evasive pattern Delta 7? He barked, the AI responding with a cheerful chime that felt absurdly out of place amid the chaos, as if the machine itself was in on some interstellar prank. The Veil's Fury responded with a volley of pinpoint lances, energy beams that sliced through space with surgical precision, grazing the station's flanks and venting atmosphere in explosive plumes. Kai wrenched the controls, spiraling them into a barrel roll that pressed Zara harder against him, her white hair whipping across his face in a fragrant tangle. "Sorry about the turbulence," he quipped, the humor a desperate lifeline as sweat beaded on his brow, "but if we're going down, at least it's with a view." She shot him a look, half exasperation, half reluctant amusement, her lips twitching in what might have been a smile, but the drama escalated as the dreadnought's veil aura intensified. Psychic whispers slithering into their minds, "Surrender the human, the traitor will face the crystal reckoning." Drama crested like a tidal wave when the comms crackled to life, not with threats, but with the Empress's voice itself, silken and commanding, laced with an undercurrent of maternal fury that made Kai's skin crawl. "Zara of the Seventh Veil, your dalliance ends here. Return to your kin, or watch as we peel this metal shell apart layer by layer." Zara recoiled as if slapped, her hand flying to her temple, the psychic link flaring painfully, images flooding her mind, crystalline spires of Zerathia crumbling under human ingenuity, her people subjugated by the very data Kai guarded. Kai caught her as she swayed, an awkward embrace in the midst of maneuvering, his arm around her waist feeling both protective and intimately out of place with Vexa still simmering in the brig. "Fight it," he urged, his breath hot against her ear. "You're more than their puppet." But the awkwardness deepened when a secondary alert blared, Vexa, stirring in her cell, the force field flickered under some internal sabotage, her voice filtering through the intercom with venomous glee. "Fools, the Empress senses your weakness. The human's touch clings to you like filth, sister. Release me, and I'll end this farce." Zara's face paled further, a dramatic flush of betrayal crossing her features. She lunged for the brig controls, only for Kai to pull her back, their bodies colliding in a tangle that sent them sprawling to the deck in a heap of limbs and tangled jumpsuit fabric. "Whoa, easy there," he grunted, half laughing through the strain as her knee accidentally connected with his thigh. "If we're role-playing a domestic spat now, at least buy me dinner first." The humor landed flat amid the explosions rocking the station, but it drew a choked laugh from her, a brief spark of levity that cut through the tension like a knife. They scrambled up, Kai hauling her to her feet with a grunt, the awkward proximity forcing him to avert his eyes from where her jumpsuit had ridden up, exposing a tantalizing stretch of thigh. "Vex is bluffing," he said, more to convince himself, rerouting power to reinforce the brig's fields just as another beam from the blockade scorched past. shearing off a sensor array in a burst of fire and sparks. The station listed, gravity stabilizers whining in protest, and Zara clung to him, her elfin ears brushing his cheek in an unintended caress that heightened the intimacy of their peril. "She's family," Zara confessed, her voice cracking with dramatic vulnerability. "But the Empress, she sees everything through the veil. Our union, it's a scandal that could shatter the Empire." The words hung heavy, drama amplifying as the dreadnought closed in, its tractor beams locking with inexorable pull, dragging the station toward its gaping hangar bay like a fly into a spider's web. Kai's hands blurred on the console, initiating a desperate overcharge of the engines, human engineering at its finest, pushing limits that would make any Zerathian engineer faint. The station shuddered, hull plates groaning, and for a heart-pounding moment, they broke free, tumbling toward the blockade's edge. But awkward fate intervened. Vex's sabotage triggered a secondary breach in the life support, venting atmosphere from the command deck in a whooshing gale that sucked at their clothes, Zara's jumpsuit billowing open dramatically to reveal more than intended. "Not now," Kai yelped, lunging to seal the panel, his face inches from her exposed midriff in a comically undignified scramble, the cold rush of air turning their skin to gooseflesh. Zara yanked the fabric closed with one hand while slapping the emergency seal with the other, their eyes meeting in a shared look of mortified hilarity amid the chaos. "Humans and your fragile bubbles," she gasped, a bubble of laughter escaping despite the tears in her eyes. "One hole, and everything flies apart." Kai couldn't help but chuckle, the sound absurd as another cruiser fired, the beam clipping their wing and sending them spinning. "Hey, it's a feature, not a bug keeps things exciting." The humor was a thin shield against the rising drama, but it bonded them, a human quirk that Zara seemed to find endearingly baffling, her amethyst eyes sparkling with reluctant warmth even as the Empress's voice boomed again. "Insolent ape, your tricks amuse, but they end in oblivion." Heightened tension peaked when Kai spotted a narrow gap in the blockade, a service lane between two cruisers, barely wide enough for the station's bulk. "There," he shouted, wrestling the controls into a suicidal weave, the station scraping hulls with screeching metal that vibrated through their bones. Zara braced against the console, her body arched in concentration as she channeled her own veil energy to bolster the shields, tattoos glowing fiercely, but the effort drained her, sweat glistening on her pale skin. Awkwardness struck again as the spin threw her into Kai's lap, literally, her curves settling against him in a way that was equal parts distracting and dangerously timed. Just as Vex's voice crackled over the intercom once more, "Enjoy the ride, lovers. The Empress will make you watch each other burn." Kai flushed, the humor twisting into awkward embarrassment as he shifted under her, muttering, "Worst timing ever, mind the joystick." Zara's laugh was breathless, genuine, cutting through the drama like sunlight through storm clouds, but it faded as the lead cruiser loomed, its weapons priming for a broadside. In a stroke of human ingenuity laced with humor, Kai triggered the station's waste recyclers, yes, the literal sewage ejectors, in an improvised chaff burst, spewing a cloud of ionized slurry that fouled the enemy's sensors. "Take that, you oversized tin cans," he whooped, the blockade's ships recoiling in what scanners read as confusion, their pristine veil fields smeared with human ingenuity. They burst through the gap, alarms screaming victory, but the drama refused to relent, the Empress's dreadnought pivoting with impossible grace, unleashing a veil storm, a psychic maelstrom that clawed at the station's hull, inducing hallucinations that made the deck buck like a living thing. Kai gripped the arms of his chair, visions assaulting him, Zara turning on him with blade in hand, her face twisted in betrayal while she cried out, clutching her head as echoes of Zerathian judgment flooded her mind. "It's pulling us back," she warned, voice strained, the awkward humor of moments ago drowned in raw peril. In the brig, Vexa laughed maniacally, her form pressing against the flickering force field. "Feel it, sister. The veil reclaims its own." Kai, fighting the illusions, slapped an emergency hypo from his kit into Zara's neck, a stimulant cocktail that jolted her back, but not without side effects. She blinked, disoriented, and in a haze, planted a fierce, awkward kiss on his lips mid-maneuver. "What the?" he sputtered, the station veering wildly, but the contact grounded them both, shattering the psychic grip just enough for Kai to fire the disruptor cannon, a full broadside of modulated waves that rippled through the fleet like a stone in a pond. The Veil's fury staggered, its aura dimming, cruisers scattering in disarray. They limped away, engines coughing smoke, but the blockade held firm, the Empress's voice a final, dramatic thunder, "Run, little ones, the galaxy is vast, but my reach is eternal." As the station jumped again, deeper into uncharted space, Kai and Zara collapsed against each other, panting, the awkward hilarity of their predicament sinking in, lovers on the run, with a captive sister stirring trouble and an empire's wrath on their tail. "Well," Kai said, wiping his brow with a grin that didn't reach his eyes, "that was one hell of a family reunion. Next time we do dinner on neutral ground?" Zara managed a weak smile, straightening her disheveled jumpsuit, the drama of their escape leaving her shaken but unbroken. "Your humor, it's a weapon all its own, Kai." But as they checked Vex's cell, now stable, the hunter glaring daggers through the field, the awkward tension simmered. Vexa sneered, "Enjoy your petty victories. The Empress doesn't forget, and neither do I." The revelation from earlier gnawed at them. The Shadow Fleet, the data, the bait, had Vexa known all along? Zara turned away, conflicted, while Kai pondered the next move, the station adrift in the black, drama building like a storm on the horizon, hours blurred into a tense standoff as they nursed the damaged systems, the command deck a mess of sparking panels and scattered debris. Kai tinkered with repairs, his human hands grease-streaked, while Zara monitored the long-range scans, her presence a constant, awkward distraction, every brush of arms or shared glance heavy with unspoken questions about loyalty and desire. Humor crept in during a quiet moment when Vexa, through the intercom, demanded water. "If you're to parade me like a trophy, at least hydrate your prisoner." Kai obliged with a ration pack, sliding it under the field, only for it to burst open in a fizzy mess that soaked Vex's armor. "Oops," he deadpanned, human plumbing always a surprise. Vex's curse was colorful, even in translation, drawing reluctant snickers from Zara, who covered her mouth, the sound easing the dramatic wait for a breath, but the awkwardness peaked when Zara confronted her sister directly, entering the brig under Kai's watchful eye from the doorway. "Why, Vexa, was this your plan all along, draw the shadows to us?" Vexa's eyes gleamed with malicious drama, her white hair matted but defiant. "Plan? Oh, sister, you were the plan. Seduce the human, extract the data, let the storms consume the rest. But you fell for his crude charms." Zara flushed, glancing back at Kai with awkward guilt, the air thick with sibling rivalry turned interstellar intrigue. Kai shifted uncomfortably, feeling like an intruder in a lover's quarrel. "Wait, no, family drama. Hey, if we're airing grievances, can we skip to the part where we all team up? Misery loves company, right?" The attempt at humor fell into a dramatic silence, broken only by the hum of the force field. Vexa leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that heightened the tension. "Team up. The Empress offers mercy if you deliver the human's head. Refuse, and Zerathia burns worlds to find you." Zara recoiled, the awkward chasm between sisters widening, and she stormed out, brushing past Kai in a huff that left him standing there, arms full of repair tools, feeling like the universe's biggest third wheel. "Family reunions," he sighed to the empty air, "always so, explosive." As night cycle fell, the station quieting to an uneasy hush, Kai and Zara retreated to his quarters for a strategy session that quickly turned awkward. Seated on the bunk, the same one where their passion had ignited, she paced, jumpsuit half unzipped in agitation, revealing glimpses that tested his focus. Vex's words, they poison everything, she confessed, stopping to face him, drama etching lines of worry on her ethereal face. Kai pulled her down beside him, intending comfort, but the proximity sparked memories, her thigh pressing against his in an unintended intimacy. "Poison's my specialty," he joked lightly, holding up a vial of neutralizer. "Want a dose?" She laughed, but it was strained, leaning into him despite herself, the moment teetering on the edge of humor and heartache. Their talk meandered into deeper waters, Zerathian customs, human stubbornness, until an awkward silence fell, broken by a sudden lurch, the station detecting a tail, a lone scout from the blockade shadowing them through the jumps. Drama reignited as they plotted a counter-ambush, but humor snuck in when Kai suggested using Vexa as bait. Tie her to the airlock with a bow, return to sender? Zara's eyes widened in mock horror, swatting his arm, the playful shove dissolving into a tentative kiss that promised more, yet left the air charged with unresolved awkwardness. With the scout closing, they had no time for tenderness, the galaxy demanded action, and their unlikely trio, lovers, siblings, enemies, was about to face the fire together. The tentative kiss lingered on Kai's lips like the echo of a distant starburst. Zara's mouth soft and insistent against his, a brief anchor in the swirling uncertainty of their counter-ambush plans. Her white hair framed her face in the low light of his quarters, those amethyst eyes half-closed in a moment of shared vulnerability, her body leaning into him with a warmth that cut through the chill of the station's recycled air. The scout ship's signature blinked insistently on the secondary monitor they'd dragged in a persistent shadow, closing the gap with calculated patience, but for that heartbeat, the galaxy's threats felt a world away. Zara pulled back slightly, her breath mingling with his, a faint flush coloring her pale cheeks, her elfin ears twitching with the subtle hum of the engines. "We can't. Not now," she whispered, though her hand remained on his chest, fingers splaying over the fabric of his flight suit, feeling the steady thrum of his heart beneath. Kai nodded, his own pulse racing not just from the impending confrontation, but from the electric pull between them, a connection that had deepened with every shared peril and whispered confession. "You're right," he murmured, his voice husky, thumb brushing her lower lip in a gentle caress that sent a shiver through her. "But after we shake this tale, we've got unfinished business." The words carried a promise, laced with the intimacy they'd discovered earlier, a bond that transcended their worlds. He stood, reluctantly releasing her, and they moved as one toward the command deck, the awkward humor of the bait idea from moments ago fading into focused resolve. Vex's taunt still echoed faintly from the brig's intercom, but Kai muted it with a decisive flick, determined not to let her poison this fragile unity. The scout was upon them now, its cloak shimmering as it dropped into firing range, a sleek predator designed for silent takedowns. Kai slid into the pilot's seat, Zara at the tactical station beside him, her jumpsuit still slightly askew from their earlier tumble, the fabric hugging her curves in a way that distracted him even as he plotted the ambush. "On my mark," he said, initiating a faint jump that masked their true vector, drawing the scout into the kill box he'd rigged with automated drones, simple human tech, but clever, laced with EMP bursts to disable without destruction. The ship took the bait, lunging forward, and Kai triggered the trap. Silent flashes lit the void as the drones swarmed, their pulses rippling through the scout's shields like waves on a pond. It faltered, engines stuttering. And in that window, Kai fired a precision tractor beam, not to capture, but to sling it harmlessly into a nearby asteroid field, where it would drift until Zerathian recovery teams found the wreckage. "Clean hit," Zara breathed, relief washing over her features, her hand finding his under the console in a spontaneous squeeze. The station stabilized, the immediate threat neutralized, leaving them in a pocket of quiet that felt almost surreal after the chaos. Adrenaline still coursed through their veins, sharpening every sensation, and as the stars steadied on the view screen, the weight of survival of them settled in. Kai turned to her, the air between them thickening with unspoken need, the earlier kiss evolving into something inevitable, a release from the tension that had built like a pressure cooker. "Now," he said softly, standing and drawing her up with him, about that unfinished business. Zara didn't resist, if anything. She melted into him, her arms wrapping around his neck as their lips met again, this time without hesitation, a slow, deepening exploration that spoke of the day's trials and triumphs. The command deck, with its humming consoles and starlit porthole, became their sanctuary, the universe outside fading to a distant backdrop. Kai's hands roamed her back, tracing the zipper of her jumpsuit with deliberate care, pulling it down inch by inch to reveal the smooth expanse of her skin, glowing faintly in the ambient light. She sighed against his mouth, a sound that was equal parts surrender and invitation, her fingers working at his suit's seals with the same unhurried grace, peeling away the barriers between them. The fabric whispered to the floor, leaving her bare once more, her body a vision of ethereal beauty, curves that invited touch, the subtle luminescence of her tattoos pulsing like heartbeats in sync with his own. He lifted her effortlessly onto the console, her legs parting to welcome him closer, the cool metal a contrast to the heat building between them. Zara's white hair cascaded over her shoulders, framing her face as she looked up at him, amethyst eyes dark with desire, her elfin ears sensitive to the soft kisses he trailed along their pointed tips. She arched into his touch, a soft gasp escaping her lips when his mouth found the hollow of her throat, his hands cupping her breasts with reverent gentleness, thumbs circling the peaks until they hardened under his attention. "Kai," she murmured, her voice a velvet plea, nails grazing his shoulders as she pulled him nearer, feeling the solid strength of him, the evidence of his arousal pressing against her thigh in a way that made her inner muscles clench with anticipation. Their movements were a dance now, unhurried yet urgent, bodies aligning in perfect harmony. Kai's lips journeyed lower, worshipping the curve of her collarbone, the valley between her breasts, drawing a moan from her that echoed softly in the confined space. He knelt before her, hands on her hips, guiding her to the edge as his mouth explored further, tasting the sweetness of her skin, the faint spice that was uniquely hers. Zara's fingers tangled in his hair, urging him on, her breath coming in shallow waves as pleasure built, a warm tide rising within her. When his tongue found the sensitive core of her, she trembled, hips bucking instinctively, the sensation sending sparks through her like stars igniting. He was patient, attentive, learning her responses, the way she whispered his name when he lingered just so, the arch of her back when the rhythm quickened, building her toward that exquisite peak with a devotion that made her feel cherished, desired beyond measure. Zara's climax washed over her gently at first, then in waves that left her gasping, body quivering as she held him close, the tattoos on her skin flaring brighter in the throes of release. But she wasn't content to be the sole recipient. With a strength born of her Zerathian heritage, she drew him up, switching their positions in a fluid motion that left him perched on the console, her between his legs, her eyes locked on his, a mischievous glint in their depths as she freed him from the last of his clothing, her hand wrapping around his length with a touch that was both firm and tender. Kai groaned, head falling back against the bulkhead, the sight of her naked, confident, her white hair brushing his thighs almost undoing him. She took her time, lips and tongue exploring with a sensual curiosity that mirrored his earlier attentions, drawing out his pleasure in slow, deliberate strokes that made his muscles tense, breath ragged. The air grew warmer, scented with their shared arousal. The stations hum a distant underscore to the intimate symphony of sighs and whispers. Zara rose then, straddling him with graceful ease, guiding him to her entrance where she was slick and ready. They joined slowly, inch by inch, her warmth enveloping him in a velvet embrace that drew mutual gasps of delight. Yes, she breathed, sinking down fully, their bodies fitting together as if crafted for this moment, her inner walls adjusting to him with a perfect, pulsing grip. Kai's hands gripped her hips, steadying her as she began to move, a gentle rock that built into a rhythm of shared ecstasy, up and down, circles that ground her against him, each motion deepening their connection. He met her thrusts with his own, rising to match her pace, one hand sliding up to cup her breast, the other tangling in her hair to pull her down for a kiss that was all heat and hunger. Zara rode him with increasing fervor, her moans mingling with his, the console creaking under their weight but holding firm. Pleasure coiled tighter within them, a building crescendo, the slide of skin on skin, the brush of her elfin ears against his cheek as she nuzzled his neck, the way her tattoos seemed to respond to his touch, glowing in patterns that danced like auroras. Kai felt her tightening around him, her breaths coming faster, and he angled his hips to heighten the sensation, whispering encouragements that made her shiver. "Let go with me," he urged, voice rough with need, and she did, her release crashing over her in a shuddering wave that pulled him along, spilling into her with a low, guttural sound of fulfillment. They clung together in the aftermath, bodies slick with sweat, hearts pounding in unison as the waves subsided. Zara rested her forehead against his, a soft laugh bubbling up from her chest, light and joyful. "Humans, you turn survival into art," she murmured, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his back, the intimacy lingering like a warm embrace. Kai chuckled, holding her close, the console's edge digging into his thighs but ignored in the glow of contentment. "And you, Zara, you make the stars jealous." They stayed like that for what felt like hours, though the chronometer marked only minutes, sharing soft kisses and whispers about nothing and everything, the feel of her against him, the way his strength grounded her ethereal grace. But even in repose, the station's alerts whispered reminders of their reality. Vexa, still confined, had gone quiet, but the long-range scans picked up faint echoes of the blockade regrouping, a distant hum that intruded on their sanctuary. Zara shifted, reluctantly disentangling, though her hand lingered on his chest. "We should check on her," she said, voice tinged with reluctance, the afterglow making the prospect of facing her sister feel all the more intrusive. Kai nodded, pulling on his suit with a sigh, watching as she did the same, the jumpsuit sliding over her curves like a lover's regret. Together, they made their way to the brig, the corridor's dim lights casting long shadows that mirrored the complexities ahead. Vexa looked up as they entered, her expression a mask of sullen defiance, but there was a flicker, curiosity, perhaps, at the subtle change in Zara's demeanor, the way she stood a fraction closer to Kai. "Enjoying your little interlude?" Vexa sneered, though her voice lacked its earlier bite, the force field humming between them like an unspoken barrier. Zara met her gaze steadily, the intimacy from moments ago lending her a quiet strength. "It's more than that, sister, and you know it." The words hung in the air, a bridge or a challenge, but Vexa only turned away, the drama of their sibling rift simmering beneath the surface. As they left the brig, Kai pulled Zara aside in the corridor, his hand on her arm, the touch reigniting sparks. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together." She smiled, leaning in for one last, lingering kiss, the promise of more woven into its gentleness. The station pressed on through the void, their bond a beacon against the encroaching shadows, but the galaxy had more in store, twists that would test not just their bodies, but the depth of their newfound connection. The quiet that followed their time together was a brief respite, allowing Kai to tinker with the station's defenses while Zara reviewed the data logs, her mind sharp despite the languid satisfaction in her movements. They worked side by side, occasional brushes of hands turning into playful touches, a squeeze here, a stolen glance there that kept the embers glowing. Humor crept in when Kai accidentally triggered a holographic display of the Scout's debris, the wreckage spinning comically on the screen. "Looks like modern art," he joked, and Zara's laughter rang out, light and free, easing the underlying tension. Yet, as the hours wore on, the intimacy drew them back together inevitably. In the privacy of his quarters once more, with the station on autopilot, they shed their clothes again, exploring each other with renewed curiosity. This time, it was slower, more exploratory, Kai laying her back on the bunk, his mouth mapping every inch of her, from the sensitive curve of her elfin ears to the responsive peaks of her breasts, down to the warmth between her thighs where he coaxed her pleasure with fingers and lips until she arched beneath him, whispering his name like a prayer. Zara reciprocated with equal fervor, her touch igniting him, bringing him to the brink before guiding him inside her once more, their joining a symphony of sighs and gentle thrusts that built to another shared crest, bodies moving in perfect, unhurried sync. In the quiet after, wrapped in each other's arms, Zara traced the lines of his face, her voice soft. "In Zerathia, such unions are rare, sacred, even, you've awakened something in me, Kai." He kissed her forehead, holding her close, the warmth of her skin a comfort against the cold expanse beyond the hull. But the comms pinged, an encrypted message from Earth Command, detailing reinforcements and warnings about the void storms encroaching. The galaxy called, but for now, in this stolen interlude, they had each other, a human-alien alliance forged in passion and promise. Zara's words hung in the warm, shared silence of the quarters, her fingers still idly tracing the contours of Kai's jaw as if committing every line to memory, a sacred ritual in the dim glow of the bunk light. The comms ping echoed again, more insistent this time, pulling them from the languid haze of their union like a cold draft through a cracked hull. Kai shifted beneath her, the sheets tangling around their legs in a comfortable disarray, and reached for the wrist comm he'd discarded earlier, its holographic display flickering to life with the encrypted insignia of Earth Command. "Probably just routine checks," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple before activating the decode sequence, his voice light to mask the undercurrent of unease that always accompanied these pings from home. Zara propped herself up on one elbow, her white hair spilling over her bare shoulder like a cascade of moonlight, her amethyst eyes curious as the message unfolded in bursts of secure text and audio. The initial read was standard, reinforcements en route from the Sol fringe. Eta uncertain due to hyperspace anomalies, warnings about the void storms intensifying. Their tendrils now probing deeper into neutral sectors, devouring probe signals and leaving ghost echoes in their wake. Kai nodded along, his arm still draped possessively around her waist, the warmth of her skin a grounding force against the clinical tone of the dispatch. "See, bureaucracy at its finest," he said with a half-smile. But then the message shifted, the audio clipping in with a personal override from Admiral Reyes, his old mentor's gravelly voice cutting through the static like a lifeline. "Harlan, if you're receiving this, listen close. The data core you've been guarding isn't just tech specs. It's a blueprint, humanity's ace against the storms, but we've got intel that changes everything." Zara tensed beside him, her elfin ears perking slightly, as if attuned to frequencies beyond the comms. Kai's brow furrowed, the playful embers from their intimacy cooling into focused attention. The Admiral continued, the words dropping like stones into still water. "Zerathia's playing a deeper game. The storms, not natural. They're engineered, a veil weapon, psychic viruses amplified to warp reality itself. designed to force alliances by breaking lesser empires, and Zara, she's no rogue agent. Our deep cover assets confirm she's the key operative, the one who seeded the initial incursion probes. But here's the twist, son. She's been feeding us breadcrumbs for cycles. Double agent, working against the Empress from the inside. The room seemed to tilt, the air thickening with shock as Kai processed the revelation, his hand freezing on Zara's hip. Double agent? The pieces slammed together in his mind, the ease with which she'd bypassed security, the subtle hesitations during their battles, the way Vexa's sister taunts had always felt too pointed, too personal. Zara's eyes widened, mirroring his surprise, but there was something else there, a flicker of recognition, quickly masked by confusion. Kai, what is this? She whispered, sitting up fully now, the sheet pooling around her waist, her tattoos dimming as if in response to the emotional quake. But before he could respond, the message plunged deeper, Ray's voice urgent, laced with a gravity that sent chills racing across Kai's skin despite the lingering heat between them. We traced her lineage, Harlan. Zara isn't just any Veil operative. She's the Empress's own daughter, princess in exile, or so the whispers go. The seduction protocol was her design, meant to infiltrate and extract the core data for Zerathia, but the pheromones, they backfired. Human resilience isn't just physical, it's emotional. You've turned her, Kai, or maybe she turned herself. The real surprise? Vexa isn't her sister. She's a construct, a Veil clone, engineered to test loyalties, to push Zara toward defection. And now, with your involvement, the core data interacts with her biology. It's rewriting her at the genetic level. Hybrid protocols activating. If you deliver her to the rendezvous point, we can weaponize it against the storms. But beware, the Empress knows, she's coming not for conquest, but for her blood. The comms cut out with a final, ominous static burst, leaving the quarters in stunned silence, the holographic display winking off like a dying star. Kai stared at the blank screen, his mind reeling from the cascade of revelations, each one a hammer blow to the foundation of trust he'd built with Zara, daughter of the Empress. The seduction, a ploy that evolved into genuine passion, and Vexa, a clone. The powerful twist hit him like a solar flare, scorching away illusions and leaving raw truth in its wake. He turned to Zara slowly, searching her face for deceit, but what he saw surprised him more. Tears, genuine and glistening on her lashes, her lower lip trembling in a vulnerability that shattered any lingering doubt. Kai, it's true, she confessed, her voice breaking like crystal under pressure, reaching for his hand but hesitating as if afraid he'd pull away. I was sent to seduce and steal. Yes, the Veil's will, binding me like chains, but your resistance, then your acceptance, it awakened me. The pheromones were meant to control, but human connection, it's addictive, unpredictable. I contacted your command months ago, anonymous bursts from shadow relays. Vexa, the clone, was my failsafe, programmed to force my hand, to make the defection undeniable. But the core data. She trailed off, her free hand drifting to her abdomen, a subtle gesture heavy with implication. Our union activated something dormant. Zerathians are sterile against the storm's corruption, it's why the Empress built them to cull the weak. But with you, human vitality, it's creating life, a hybrid. That's the real power, the twist she fears most. Kai's breath caught, the surprise twisting deeper, a profound shock that rewrote their entire saga in an instant. Life. From their passionate encounters, a child bridging worlds, a being that could defy the engineered apocalypse of the void storms. The HFY core of it all surged within him, humanity not just surviving, but creating, adapting, turning an alien weapon into salvation. But the drama crashed in. The Empress, his lover's mother, would raise sectors to claim that legacy. And Vexa, the sister who tormented them, a puppet in Zara's rebellion. He pulled her close despite the whirlwind, his embrace fierce, protective, the warmth of her body reaffirming the truth in her eyes. A child, he echoed, the word foreign yet exhilarating, his hand covering hers on her belly, feeling nothing yet but the potential humming between them like a newborn star. Zara nodded, tears spilling now, her white hair curtaining her face as she leaned into him, the surprise forging a deeper bond amid the revelation's chaos. The core data was never just blueprints, it's a genetic archive, human adaptability encoded. It resonated with my Veil essence during us. The Empress engineered the storms to enforce purity, to prevent hybrids that could challenge her rule. But you, Kai, your stubborn heart, your fire, it's the catalyst. Vexa was meant to eliminate me if I wavered, but I reprogrammed her subroutines in secret, turning the clone into an unwitting ally. The confession poured out, each detail a layer peeled back, surprising Kai with the depth of her deception, not against him, but for them. The station's alarms remained silent for now, but the implications thrummed. Earth Command's reinforcements weren't just ships, they were midwives to a new era, guardians of this miraculous twist. He held her tighter, the initial shock giving way to a thrilling resolve, his mind already mapping paths forward, rendezvous coordinates embedded in the message. Evasion routes through storm-tainted nebulae. All this time, he said, voice rough with emotion, pulling back to cup her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. You played the Temptress to save us both? Damn, Zara. That's one hell of a long con. A wry smile tugged at his lips, the human humor surfacing even now, lightening the profound weight of the twist. She laughed through her sobs, a sound of release, pressing her forehead to his. And you, my human, saw through the veil without even trying. The galaxy will never be the same. But the surprise wasn't over, as they disentangled to dress and prepare. A new alert chimed from the brig Vex's force field destabilizing, not from sabotage, but from an internal command override. Kai bolted down the corridor, Zara close behind, pulse rifle in hand, the revelation fueling his steps with urgent purpose. The cell door earized open as they arrived. Vexa standing tall, her armor shed in the earlier scuffle, revealing a form eerily identical to Zara's, pale skin, white hair, elfin ears, but her amethyst eyes now held a clarity unmarred by rage. It's done, she said simply, stepping forward without hostility, her voice a mirror of Zara's but laced with mechanical precision. Subroutines purged. I am free. The clone awakens. The powerful twist doubled down in that moment, Vexa no longer enemy, but ally extending a hand in truce, her tattoos syncing with Zara's in a harmonious glow that lit the brig like a beacon. The Empress's design flaw? Vexa explained, the words surprising in their calm analysis. I was built to mirror, but human influence through you, Zara and the core's resonance, evolved me. No more puppet. The storm's corruption can't touch hybrids like what you're carrying. We three, us, and the child, hold the key to dismantling them. Kai lowered the rifle, astonishment rooting him in place. As Zara embraced her sister, the clone's form trembling with newfound sentience, a family forged not by blood but by defiance. The station's sensors pinged then, the first tendrils of the Empress's pursuit fleet emerging from hyperspace folds, their signatures a storm of veil energy that made the hull vibrate. But with Vexa now at the tactical console, her cloned mind interfacing seamlessly with the systems, they plotted a daring counter, using the core data to broadcast a hybrid signal, a lure that would draw the storms toward the Zerathian armada instead. Surprise her with her own weapon, Vexa suggested, a hint of wry Zerathian humor creeping in, mirroring Kai's own. He grinned, clapping the clone on the shoulder, the gesture awkward but genuine. Welcome to the family. Number 2, let's give Mom a show she'll never forget. As they sped toward the rendezvous, the trio, lover, defector, and awakened clone bound by the twist's revelation, Kai felt the HFY spirit ignite fully. Humanity didn't just endure, it transformed, turning spies into saviors, enemies into kin, and an interstellar seduction into the birth of hope. Zara's hand found his again, their eyes meeting in silent promise, the child within her a secret spark that would illuminate the stars. The Empress's fleet closed in, but the surprise was theirs now, a hybrid dawn rising against the engineered night. The journey to the rendezvous blurred into a high-stakes ballet of evasion and strategy, Vex's analytical precision complementing Kai's improvisational flair and Zara's intimate knowledge of Zerathian tactics. They wove through asteroid belts laced with storm residue, the void twisting unnaturally around them. Psychic whispers clawing at the edges of their minds but repelled by the core's protective field, now attuned to the hybrid essence growing within Zara. It's protecting us, she marveled during a brief lull, her hand on her belly, the surprise of impending motherhood softening her features into a glow that made Kai's heart ache with protectiveness. He stole moments to hold her, their touches lingering with the memory of passion, but now infused with a deeper tenderness, the twist reshaping their desire into something eternal. Vexa, adapting with surprising speed, shared fragments of her birth, cloned in the Empress's hidden labs, imprinted with loyalty scripts that Zara had subtly eroded over cycles of covert messages. You saved me before you even knew, the clone admitted to Zara, a sibling bond forming in the unlikeliest of ways, their white hair mingling as they pored over schematics. Kai watched from the pilot's chair, the powerful revelation settling into a profound acceptance. What had begun as a lone station's isolation had blossomed into a rebellion's core. Humanity's ingenuity, the spark that ignited it all. As the rendezvous beacon hove into view, a cloaked Earth outpost masquerading as a derelict freighter, the Empress's lead ship materialized in a blaze of warp fury, its veil aura a tidal wave crashing against their shields. "She's here," Zara warned, voice steady now, laced with the resolve of one who had chosen her path. Kai engaged the broadcast, the hybrid signal erupting from the station like a supernova, drawing the nearest void storm tendril, a writhing mass of darkness, straight toward the dreadnought. The twist played out in spectacular drama, the Empress's own creation turned against her, the storm latching onto the veil fields with voracious hunger, psychic feedback looping back to cripple her fleet. The outpost's reinforcements burst forth, sleek human corvettes, unassuming but lethal, their railguns singing a chorus of precision fire that exploited the chaos. Kai maneuvered through the fray, Vexa calling targets with cold efficiency, Zara channeling veil bursts to shield them, her pregnancy's essence amplifying her power into something radiant, unstoppable. "For the child," she whispered during a near miss, her hand on Kai's shoulder, and he nodded, the surprise of fatherhood fueling his every command. In the battle's climax, the Empress's voice pierced the comms once more, not with rage, but a chilling curiosity. "Daughter, what have you wrought? A mongrel heir to unmake my empire?" But Zara's response was fire. "Not unmake, mother remake, with him, with us." The storm consumed the dreadnought in a cataclysmic implosion, the Empress's aura winking out in a final, surprised gasp, her fleet scattering into retreat. Victory hummed through the station, the hybrid signal propagating like a virus, weakening storms across the sector. Docking with the outpost, Kai and Zara stepped into the arms of waiting medtechs, Vexa at their flank, the trio inseparable. Scans confirmed it, the life within Zara, a perfect fusion. The twist's ultimate gift, a being immune to the storms, capable of neutralizing them galaxy-wide. Earth Command hailed them heroes, but for Kai, the true surprise lingered in Zara's eyes as she squeezed his hand. Love, born of deception, now unbreakable truth. The stars, once cold and vast, felt alive with possibility, humanity's fuck yeah echoing in the birth of a new legacy. The medtech's arms enveloped Kai and Zara in a whirlwind of efficient chaos, their white coats fluttering like flags of surrender in the outpost's sterile docking bay, the air thick with the sharp tang of antiseptics and the faint ozone hum of active scanners. Vexa hovered at their flank, her cloned form drawing stares from the human crew, whispers rippling through the ranks like aftershocks from the battle outside, her identical features to Zara's sparking a mix of awe and unease that heightened the drama of their arrival. Kai kept a firm hand on Zara's lower back, guiding her through the throng, his protective instinct flaring as a young ensign accidentally bumped into her, mumbling apologies while gawking at her elfin ears and glowing tattoos. "Easy there, kid," Kai said with a forced grin, the humor a thin veil over his rising tension. "She's not a sideshow attraction, though if she were, you'd need tickets." The ensign flushed crimson, stumbling back, and Zara squeezed Kai's hand, her touch a silent thank you amid the awkward shuffle. Admiral Reyes himself waited at the end of the bay, his weathered face cracking into a rare smile under the harsh overhead lights, but the drama thickened as he took in the sight. Zara, radiant yet weary, her hand protectively over the subtle swell of her belly, Vexa, standing rigid like a statue come to life, and Kai, grease-streaked and triumphant, the human core of this interstellar miracle. "Harlan," Reyes boomed, clasping Kai's forearm in a grip that spoke of old battles and older trusts. "You've outdone yourself. The signal's propagating, storms are receding across 3 sectors already. But this..." His eyes flicked to Zara, then Vexa, the unspoken questions piling up like debris in the void. "Hybrids? Clones? It's like you scripted a holodrama out of a fever dream." Kai chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck in that awkward way that betrayed his discomfort with the spotlight, the humor bubbling up as a defense against the weight of it all. "Fever dream? Admiral, you have no idea. One minute I'm minding my own business on a rust bucket station. Next I'm playing dad to a galaxy-saving kid with an alien princess and her evil twin who's not so evil after all." Vexa arched an eyebrow, her amethyst eyes mirroring Zara's exactly, which only amplified the awkwardness. Reyes did a double take, as if seeing double, and the medtechs exchanged glances that screamed protocol breach. Zara stifled a laugh, but her free hand fluttered to her midsection, a flicker of pain crossing her features that sent Kai's heart plummeting. "Zara?" he asked, voice dropping to urgent concern, the drama spiking like a sensor spike. She waved it off with a weak smile, but the medtech sprang into action, ushering them toward the medical wing, a gleaming labyrinth of bio beds and humming diagnostic arches that made the outpost feel more like a fortress than a haven. "Just a twinge," Zara assured, though her steps faltered, leaning heavier on Kai, her white hair veiling a face etched with strain. Vexa moved to her other side, supporting her with mechanical precision. The clones touched gentle but clinical, creating an awkward trio shuffle that drew more stares from the crew. Sisterly love at its finest, Kai quipped dryly, trying to lighten the moment as they navigated the corridor. But his joke fell flat when another contraction-like wave hit Zara, making her gasp and grip both their arms. "Okay, not funny. Medbay, now double time." The medical wing buzzed with heightened activity, alarms beeping softly as the team swarmed Zara onto a biobed, scanners whirring to life in a symphony of blue lights that danced across her skin. Rays pulled Kai aside into an observation alcove, the transparent walls offering a dramatic view of the proceedings, Vexa lingering just outside like a sentinel. "Talk to me," Harlan, the Admiral urged, his voice low, the drama of command weighing on him like an ill-fitting uniform. "The Empress gone, fleet in disarray, and this child. It's the key, but if Zerathia's remnants regroup." Kai leaned against the bulkhead, crossing his arms, the awkwardness of fatherhood clashing with his lone wolf instincts. "Gone, yeah, for now, but Mom Dearest might have backups. The kid, it's a miracle, sir. Hybrid immunity to the storms, plus whatever veil tricks Zara's packing. But if it's anything like its mom, it'll be kicking up a storm sooner than later." Rays nodded, but his expression soured with the next revelation from the scans filtering through the monitors. The pregnancy's accelerated, veiled genetics meshing with human, but unstable. "We need to stabilize it, or..." He trailed off, the unspoken risk hanging like a guillotine, drama coiling tighter as Kai's face drained of color. "Or what? Lose them both." He pushed off the wall, striding to the biobed where Zara lay, her eyes fluttering open to meet his, a brave smile masking the pain. Vexa hovered nearby, her cloned empathy manifesting in fidgety hands awkward, as if she were trying out emotions for the first time. "The data core," Vexa interjected, her voice a precise echo. "It can be interfaced directly, but it requires synchronization between all of us." The medtechs paused, exchanging baffled looks, the awkward situation unfolding like a bad comedy of errors. A human admiral, an alien princess in labor, her clone sister, and a grizzled spacer dad-to-be, all staring at a glowing data core extracted from the station's cargo. "Synchronization?" one tech echoed, pushing up his glasses. "Like, linking minds with that thing?" Kai snorted, the humor escaping in a burst to cut the tension. "Yeah, because nothing says family bonding like plugging into a supercomputer during childbirth. Pass the neural jack, I'll go first." Zara laughed weakly from the bed, but it turned into a wince, her hand clutching the sheets as another wave hit, heightening the drama to a fever pitch. "Kai, it's coming faster." The child senses the threat. Remnants of the fleet are probing the outpost's shields. Alarms wailed then, the outpost shuddering under a tentative barrage from cloaked Zerathian scouts, loyalists, perhaps, or automated drones left by the Empress's final command. Rays barked orders into his comm, diverting corvettes to intercept. But the intrusion amplified the chaos, medtech scrambling to secure the bay, Vexa interfacing with the core's panels with eerie familiarity, her fingers blurring over the controls. "The Empress's echo," she explained, voice steady amid the red strobing lights. "A psychic imprint. It's calling the child, trying to reclaim it." Kai's blood ran cold, the drama personal now, as he knelt beside Zara, wiping sweat from her brow, his rough hand dwarfing hers. "Not on my watch," he growled. But awkwardness struck when the sync process began, neural links snaking from the core to their temples, a tingling buzz that made Kai's vision swim with fragmented visions. Zara's crystalline homeworld, Vex's sterile birthing vat, his own Earth memories of lonely stars. The link deepened, drama escalating as the visions merged. Awkward overlaps creating surreal hilarity, Kai glimpsing himself through Zara's eyes as a barbaric yet endearing beast, while Vexa processed human humor as inefficient emotional discharge. "Hey, clone girl," Kai muttered through gritted teeth, the sync's feedback making his words slur slightly. "If you laugh at my jokes in there, I'll know." Vexa, now number 2 in his mind, replied with a mental chuckle that echoed in their shared consciousness. The humor a bizarre lifeline as Zara cried out, the labor intensifying under the psychic strain. "It's pulling," she gasped, her free hand on her belly, the hybrid child responding to the core's resonance with bursts of veil energy that lit the room like fireworks, startling a medtech into dropping a hypospray with a clatter. Rays coordinated from the alcove, his voice a anchor, shields holding, scouts retreating, but more inbound. "Harlan, whatever you're doing, make it quick." The awkwardness peaked when the sync revealed a hidden layer. The Empress's imprint wasn't just a threat, it was a plea, twisted by the storm's corruption, begging for release through the child. Zara's eyes snapped open, tears streaming, the drama raw and visceral. "Mother," she was trapped, building the storms to escape her own prison. The hybrid can free her soul. Kai's heart twisted, fatherhood's weight crashing down, but he quipped through the link. "Great, now we're therapists for dead space queens. Add it to the resume." The humor drew a pained smile from Zara, but the contraction that followed buckled her. The biobed alarms screaming as vitals spiked. Vexa, adapting faster than any human could, modulated the core's output, channeling the hybrid essence to stabilize Zara, but not without side effects. Phantom sensations rippling through the link, Kai feeling a warm flutter in his own abdomen, like butterflies with laser wings, making him yelp and clutch his stomach. "What the? If I'm going into sympathy labor, I'm out." The medtech stared, one stifling a giggle amid the frenzy, the awkward humor diffusing the terror just enough to keep them focused. Zara bore down with a warrior's cry, the child crowning in a glow of mingled energies, the scouts outside exploding in brilliant flares as the hybrid signal purged the last echoes of the fleet. In a final, dramatic surge, the baby emerged, a tiny form with pale skin, wisps of white hair, and eyes that flickered between human blue and amethyst, crying out with a voice that resonated through the link like a clarion call. The storms, galaxy-wide, began to dissipate, the core pulsing in triumph. Kai cut the cord with trembling hands, the medtechs wrapping the infant in a thermal blanket, handing it to Zara with reverent whispers. "A girl," one announced, and Zara cradled her, exhaustion giving way to joy, her tattoos syncing with the child's faint glow. Vexa touched the baby's cheek, a soft wonder in her cloned eyes, the awkward family unit complete in that heartbeat, but drama lingered as Rays entered. The battle won but the awkward aftermath unfolding. "Name her yet?" he asked gruffly, eyeing the trio with paternal pride mixed with bureaucratic wariness. Kai, holding Zara's hand while cooing at the bundle, grinned sheepishly. "Aurora fits the whole dawn of a new era vibe, but if she starts quoting Shakespeare at 3 months, we blame the clone." Vexa rolled her eyes, literally, in sync with Zara, drawing a collective laugh that echoed through the wing, lightening the profound moment. The scouts' remnants fizzled out, the outpost securing, but whispers of Zerathian holdouts persisted, heightening the tension. The child was safe, but the Empire's shadows loomed. As the med team bustled with post-birth protocols, awkward situations abounded, Kai fumbling a diaper change under Vex's tutorial gaze. Humans and their waste rituals, fascinatingly primitive, she deadpanned, while Zara nursed in quiet bliss, the baby's coos bridging worlds. Rays pulled Kai aside again, clapping his shoulder. "Hero of the stars, Harlan, but fatherhood, that's the real battle." Kai nodded, glancing back at his unconventional family, the drama of their victory tempered by humor's gentle touch. "Yeah, sir, and with these two, it's gonna be one wild ride." The hours stretched into a vigil of recovery, the outpost a hive of activity as news spread, Earth Command hailing the hybrid dawn, but awkward interrogations loomed, diplomats demanding details on the clone, scientists itching to scan Vexa, who quipped back, "Proceed with caution, I might sync with your coffee machine next." Zara rested, the baby Aurora sleeping against her, Kai standing guard with a pulse rifle slung casually, his humor masking the vigilant drama. "Think she'll have my chin or Zara's ears?" he mused to Vexa during a quiet watch, the clone tilting her head. "Both and your questionable jokes, unfortunately." Their laughter was soft, bonding in the awkward new normal, but sensors pinged, a faint veil echo, not threat, but invitation from Zerathian defectors, drawn by the signal. Drama crested anew as the first envoys arrived, Zerathians, pale and wary, kneeling before Zara and the child, pledging allegiance in a ceremony that felt equal parts triumphant and comically out of place amid humming human tech. "Your Highness," one intoned, but Kai's stomach growled audibly, shattering the reverence. "Sorry, folks, heroics work up an appetite. Anyone know where the mess hall hides the good synth steak?" The envoys blinked, awkward silence breaking into tentative chuckles, the humor weaving peace from tension. Zara met his eyes across the room, love shining brighter than any star, the child stirring in her arms as if sensing the galaxy's shift. Yet, as night cycle fell over the outpost, a final awkward twist, Aurora's first power, a tiny veil burst that synced the lights to flicker in lullaby patterns, startling Reyes into spilling his coffee. Great, Kai groaned, mopping it up. Now she's de-jing the place. Vexa, your turn to babysit. The clone scooped the baby with surprising tenderness, humming a Zerathian melody that lulled her instantly. The scene a tableau of drama resolved in familial warmth. The stars outside gleamed with promise, but Kai knew peace was fragile. The awkward dance of worlds just beginning. Aurora's tiny fingers curled around Kai's thumb with a grip that belied her fragile form. Her eyes, those mesmerizing swirls of blue and amethyst, fluttering open to gaze up at him as if she already held the secrets of the cosmos in her infant stare. The medical wings lights had steadied. The flickering lullaby patterns from her inadvertent veil burst now a soft, rhythmic glow that bathed the room in a gentle aurora of its own making, syncing with the quiet beeps of the monitors and the distant hum of the outpost's life support. Zara watched from the biobed, propped up on pillows with a serene exhaustion that made her seem even more ethereal. Her white hair fanned out like a halo, a tender smile playing on her lips as she extended a hand to their daughter. "She's perfect," Zara whispered, her voice rich with wonder, the earlier pains of labor a fading echo in the face of this profound arrival. Kai leaned down, pressing a kiss to Zara's forehead, then to Aurora's downy head, the scent of new life, clean, vital, a blend of human warmth and Zerathian spice, filling his senses and easing the last knots of tension from his shoulders. Vexa, still adjusting to her role as the unexpected aunt, her cloned features softening with each passing moment, hovered nearby, her hand resting lightly on the biobed's rail, as if anchoring herself in this uncharted territory of family. "The patterns she weaves," Vexa murmured, her analytical tone laced with an emerging warmth. "They're stabilizing the residual storm echoes. Even in sleep, she mends the fabric of space." Reyes, coffee-stained forgotten and now sporting a grandfatherly grin that crinkled the corners of his eyes, clapped Kai on the back with a gentleness that surprised them both. "Harlan, you've given us more than a victory today. You've given the galaxy a future, one that doesn't end in darkness." The Admiral's words carried the weight of command's relief, but there was a personal undercurrent too, a nod to the lone spacer who'd become the linchpin of humanity's greatest leap. As the envoys from the Zerathian defectors lingered in the antechamber, their kneeling forms a symbol of shifting allegiances. The outpost's comms crackled with incoming hails, not threats, but tributes. Sectors long plagued by the void storms reported clear skies, probe readings confirming the hybrid signal's propagation had unraveled the Empress's twisted legacy, turning her weapon of despair into a beacon of renewal. Diplomats from fringe worlds, human and alien alike, queued in the ether, eager to pledge support to the Aurora Accord, a nascent alliance forged in the fires of this unlikely union. Kai glanced at the viewscreen, where corvettes patrolled a now peaceful void, and felt a swell of that HFY pride, the unyielding human spirit, not through brute force or grand fleets, but through connection, creation, and a dash of cosmic luck. Yet, even in triumph, the awkward undercurrents of their patchwork family bubbled up, lightening the profound moment with touches of humor that kept the drama from overwhelming. Reyes, ever the pragmatist, cleared his throat awkwardly as a medtech handed him a data pad for signatures. "So, official records, Father Kai Harlan, Mother Zara of Zerathia, and the, clone guardian." Vexa straightened, her elfin ears twitching with mock indignation. "Guardian, I prefer coparental unit. Or simply Vexa, none of that number 2 nonsense." Harlan, Kai barked a laugh, rubbing his chin ruefully. "Fair enough, but if she starts calling you anti-clone during playtime, don't blame me, blame the kid's sense of humor." Zara's chuckle joined in, soft and melodic, her hand finding Kai's across the biobed, Aurora gurgling contentedly between them as if approving the banter. The Admiral shook his head, signing with a flourish. "You lot are going to give the bureaucrats fits, but hell, after today, they can handle it." The ceremony that followed was a blend of human formality and Zerathian ritual, held in the outpost's grand observation lounge, a vast dome overlooking the stars, now twinkling with unmarred clarity. Envoys in flowing robes mingled with starched uniformed officers, the air scented with synth wine and exotic blooms imported from neutral worlds, a tentative bridge between cultures. Zara, cradling Aurora in a swaddling of soft, adaptive fabric that shimmered like her tattoos, stood at Kai's side, her jumpsuit replaced by an elegant gown of Zerathian silk that hugged her form with graceful allure. Her white hair adorned with simple human beads, a gift from Rays, symbolizing unity. Vexa, in a tailored uniform that mirrored the admiral's, flanked them, her presence a quiet testament to redemption, her once predatory gaze now watchful and warm, as the accords were read aloud, pledges of shared tech, joint defenses against any storm resurgence, and protections for hybrid lineages. The drama of the past weeks culminated in a collective exhale, the galaxy exhaling with them. Kai felt Zara's fingers intertwine with his, her touch a steady pulse that grounded him, and when it came time for vows, not just diplomatic, but personal, he stepped forward, his voice steady despite the knot in his throat. "We started with a stare, a challenge across worlds," he said, eyes locked on Zara's, the room falling silent. "But what we built, it's more than survival. It's legacy, for Aurora, for all of us." The envoys murmured approval, but it was Zara's response that sealed it. Her voice carrying like starlight, "From temptation to truth, human heart to veil soul, together we rewrite the stars." Aurora, as if sensing the moment, let out a soft coo, her tiny hand reaching out to touch the central hologram, a swirling map of cleared sectors, now blooming with green indicators of safe passage. The room erupted in cheers, awkward at first as alien customs clashed, Zerathians bowing low while humans clapped raucously, but the humor smoothed it over when one envoy, attempting a human handshake, accidentally activated a holographic firework display, filling the dome with illusory sparks that made Aurora giggle and Vexa dodge with exaggerated flair. "See," Kai quipped, pulling Zara close amid the laughter, "even peace has its pratfalls." Rays raised a glass, toasting to the family that saved the stars and to more coffee stains along the way. In the quiet hours after, as the outpost settled into celebration, Kai and Zara retreated to a private viewport alcove, Aurora nestled between them on a cushioned bench, her breaths even in sleep. Vexa had excused herself to the simbay, calibrating with the engineers, code for indulging in her newfound love of human flight games, her laughter echoing faintly down the halls. The stars stretched out before them, vast and inviting, no longer harbingers of isolation but canvases for exploration. Zara leaned her head on Kai's shoulder, her elfin ear brushing his cheek, the warmth of her body a perfect counter to the cold glass. "Do you ever wonder," she murmured, tracing patterns on his hand that mirrored Aurora's earlier light show, "what adventures await her? Us?" Kai smiled, his arm encircling them both, the weight of fatherhood settling like a well-worn jacket, comfortable, empowering. "With her powers, we'll be chasing comets and outrunning nebulae. But wherever we go, it's home as long as it's with you." He turned her face to his, their kiss soft and lingering, a reaffirmation of the passion that had sparked it all, now deepened by love and legacy. Aurora stirred, her eyes opening briefly to the cosmos, as if claiming it already, and in that gaze, Kai saw the future, colonies thriving, alliances blooming, humanity's fuck yeah amplified by hybrid wonders, turning the galaxy from a battlefield into a family. Months blurred into cycles of discovery, the Orion Drift Station, refitted and rechristened Aurora's Dawn, serving as their mobile haven, a roving embassy of peace. Kai captained her through uncharted routes, Zara at navigation with her innate veil senses, Vexa handling security with a blend of cloned precision and acquired wit that had the crew in stitches. Aurora grew before their eyes, her hybrid vigor accelerating milestones, first steps on a zero-G deck, first words a mix of English and Zerathian lilts, her laughter a melody that synced the ship systems into harmonious hums. Awkward moments abounded. The time Aurora's accidental burst turned the galley into a zero-G fruit salad, Vexa floating amid bananas with dignified exasperation, or Kai's fumbling attempts at Zerathian lullabies, Zara correcting him with teasing kisses that left the nanny droids blushing in their circuits. But the drama of old foes faded into footnotes, Zerathian holdouts integrating under the Accord. The last storm wisps purged by Aurora's innate resonance, broadcast from afar like a child's song scattering shadows. Earth honored them with medals and monuments, but Kai cherished the quiet nights most, Zara singing to their daughter under starfields, Vexa joining in with harmonized drones from the engines, the family unbreakable. "We did it," he'd whisper to Zara as Aurora slept, their bodies entwined in the captain's bunk, passion reignited in stolen moments that felt eternal. From one naked surprise to this, she'd smile, her amethyst eyes reflecting the stars, her hand on his chest, and every twist in between made us stronger. Humanity's gift turning the unknown into ours. As the dawn ventured onward, pioneers of a united frontier, Kai knew the ending wasn't an end, but a beginning, a good one, woven of love, laughter, and the unyielding light of a hybrid dawn. The galaxy, once a temptress of peril, now whispered promises of wonder, and in the heart of it all, their story shone eternal. Years later, as Aurora skipped across the bridge, her white hair bouncing with elfin grace and human mischief, she'd tug at Kai's sleeve, eyes sparkling. "Daddy, tell me again, how did you meet Mommy?" He'd scoop her up, Zara watching with fond amusement, Vexor rolling her eyes from the helm. "Well, kiddo," Kai would begin, the tale spinning out with exaggerated flair. "It started with a stare, and a whole lot of stars. Laughter filled the air, the dawn pressing into the infinite, a testament to the power of one human's grit, one alien's heart, and the family that conquered the void. In the end, it wasn't about empires toppled or storms slain, it was about the quiet victories, the touch of a hand across worlds, the cry of a child bridging divides, the enduring flame of connection that outshone any supernova. And as the stars wheeled by, Kai held his family close, grateful for the journey, ready for whatever cosmic curveball came next. For in the grand tapestry of the universe, their thread gleamed brightest, a good ending that promised endless beginnings.